Hey guys. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what my drawbar settings are, or what are some drawbar settings. And I keep meaning to do a video about it, even though I think my drawbar settings are usually visible in the organ videos I play. And then recently, a close friend of mine posted on Facebook asking for drawbar suggestions. And I don't think there's anything unique or revolutionary about the settings I use, but it doesn't hurt to make a video, certainly. So whenever people ask me, I always say I don't use specific settings, I go between specific settings, which is mostly true. But there are some exceptions. So, can everything be seen in the video? Yeah, it looks like all 4 sets can be seen in the video. So, this one here, I almost always keep the first 4 out, and then the first black one out to like 4 or 5. And that's because I use this preset, this set of drawbars in the upper manual for left-hand bass. And so that's my just generic left-hand bass setting. I always used to wonder why gospel musicians played left-hand bass up here instead of down here like jazz musicians. And the best answer I could get is because you're used to playing your chords down here, because if you're playing pedals, you do 2-handed chords here. And I asked, when I was young, I asked one of the gospel musicians that I used to work with, why don't you play your chords up here? And they said, well, this is closer. So, I got used to doing it that way, and that's the way a lot of musicians do, and so this set stays, and this set, I generally speaking, is one of 2 things. Either it's this, which is just I skip one and then pull the next 2 out, and then no percussion. Oh, sorry, wrong one. And we'll get to that setting a little later. Or I'll do the Jimmy Smith setting, which is pulling out the first 3 and then have all the percussion tabs up. Can you see the percussion tabs? Not really, but just all 4 of them on, all 4 of them forward. And if I have the opportunity, I will disable the volume drop on normal, in which case I'll keep it to normal instead of soft. But I don't think this organ has the volume drop disabled. So, yeah, that's generally those stay. This set here, I generally keep to full out. The only exception to that is if some of these drawbars have a broken wire. So recently you might have seen at the organ at Capital City, this is not set to full out, and that's because more than half of these have broken wires, and I just haven't had an opportunity to go there and solder the wire back in the drawbars. So I'll generally, this organ, the preset stick, come on, stay. I'll generally keep these to full out. But then if I'm doing something like backing the preacher, I might push this first one in a little bit to 7. Or even 6. On a rare occasion, I'll even push it all the way in. So, and then pedals are pretty easy. Usually if the organ is relatively full sounding, has a lot of bass, a lot of treble, and I don't have to adjust the pedal drawbars accordingly, I'll generally have the first one out to 8 and the second one out to like 5 or 6. In this case, we're in my home studio, and this Leslie is very bassy and kind of mellow, so in this case I would probably normally have it. So we'll leave it there for now. But yeah, some variation of 8/5, or like I said, might push them in a little bit accordingly, but so most of my drawbar changes only happen here. And so, as I think I said earlier in the video, if not, I'll say it now, I don't use settings per se, I switch between. Like, I'll have some bass settings, and then everything else is kind of a variation in between. So, my first bass setting is just these 2 out. So it's a 16 foot, you skip the 5 and a whatever it is, and then the 8 foot. And that's just your basic slow song mellow. And if the organ's really muddy, I might push this one in a little bit. 7/8. Even 6/8. So that's my mellowest setting. And then my next setting is the first 4 out and the last one. So most of the playing that I do, the settings are somewhere in between there. So I'll start with this one, and let's start with 6/8. And then I'll start pulling, as I want it to fill up a little bit, I'll start pulling this drawbar out first. And depending on the organ, I'll either pull out this one a little bit, or this one. Just keeps going in between, so it's always going to be some variation between just these 2 and these 5, and so you know. So like I always think of it this way, like starting out as a slow song is just the 2, and then getting into like a praise and worshipy song is the 4 and the 1. If the organ is real mid-rangey, I might still push this one a little bit. So, but getting between like a worship song and a praise and worship song is anywhere in between those 2 settings. And then, so then on my next setting that I'm working towards, my next setting is the first 6 out and the last one. And that's kind of like, for like, that's a real churchy setting. Preset won't stay down. So again, we're starting here, and we're working our way towards this. So I might start here. Maybe I'll push that one in a little bit. Pull that one out a little. Or I might end up here and then start pulling this one out, whatever. And then, of course, the last setting is full out. So then, you know, when I just sat down to do this video, I've done a session here recently, and I think what I had ended up in the session for was this. And this is what it was for the session, because it was... I needed something churchier than this, but not as churchy as this. And so I ended up here. So again, it's just I'm looking at variations. I'm starting here, then you're gradually, you know, getting to here, and you're gradually getting to here, and then you gradually get to there, and then you're all the way, you know. And I'm always fiddling with drawbars as I'm playing. Up a little bit too much of this one, a little more of that one, you know. Same way that you might mix, you know, you might mix a good record, you know. And so my settings are not going to be the same every Sunday, but they're going to be somewhere in between. You know, for a slow song, it's going to be somewhere between here and here. You know, for a churchy song, it's going to be somewhere between here and here. And the last thing I wanted to demonstrate is I have one exception to that rule, and it's sometimes, especially for like talk music or quiet music during a prayer or like a breakdown or something like that, I'll use this same setting here. Well, I'll skip this one. I stole this from a cat named A.D. in Minneapolis, who was not like, you didn't always notice his playing, but he'd sneak something really cool in there. And one time I heard him playing like talk music or something like that, and he used this setting, and you like didn't even hear it at first. Then when you did, you're like, oh, that's really good. And so I'll just pull these two out and I'll play an octave down. Transitions to this one. Unlike a lot of organists, I use vibrato and chorus real sparingly. I almost always have it on C3, but sometimes I'll do C1 or C2 just to change it up. And I pretty much only put it on during churchy stuff and sessions. I just playing live, I prefer to be without it unless it's churchy. You know, definitely use it for backing the preacher, and for like praise and worship, I rarely use it. Like congregational songs, I might use it. But on sessions, I almost always use it because for some reason the organ just records better with it. I know a lot of organists don't use these two brown ones. They might, instead of this setting, they might use it's the same setting, but you play an octave down because your fundamental instead of here is now this. And their full organ is this instead of this, it's this. And then even instead of 4 out is real popular, which is again that's somewhere like halfway between this and this is 4 out. 4 out is real popular. Instead of the 4 out there, they'll do the 4 out here. I have never got with that way. I understand that there's more room to chord up here, and this down here is pretty useless for chording, so I get it, but I'm just not accustomed to playing that way. I think the first drawbar setting I ever learned was the Jimmy Smith setting, so I just got accustomed to the 16-foot being your fundamental, and not the 8. But there you have it. That's everything that I do with drawbar settings, so now you can play like me. If you'd even want to. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments. Thanks for watching.